He walked slowly, one stiff step at a time, his military-issue shoes scuffed from decades of wear, his U.S. Navy windbreaker too thin for the cold gymnasium air. And though the audience bustled around him with cameras, laughter, and bouquets, no one moved aside, no one noticed, not even when he paused, squinting at the folding chairs in the back of the high school auditorium, where his son, his only living family, was set to graduate with honors. A moment the old man had promised himself he would never miss. Not even if his knees gave out or the shrapnel in his hips screamed louder than his breath. He had arrived early, tried to sit quietly, but the guards at the back mistook his plain clothes, weathered face, and trembling hands for confusion, even danger. And when he asked where he could find seat 8C, the younger of the two scoffed and said, "Sir, these sections for family," to which the old man softly replied, "That's why I'm here." But the second guard stepped forward, arms crossed, and with a voice loud enough to draw stares from the surrounding rows, said, "You're going to have to leave, sir, unless you've got credentials." And though the old man held out a crumpled paper pass printed by his son weeks ago, the guard didn't even glance at it before shaking his head and calling for backup. A small commotion now rippling through the crowd as people began turning around, whispering, smirking, the music teacher lowering his baton mid-wave, while the principal at the podium faltered mid-sentence, casting a confused look toward the commotion. And in that frozen moment, the old man didn't shout or resist, he just looked down, then turned to leave, his face unreadable, but his hands trembling, not from fear, but from something deeper, older, a humiliation he had endured quietly 1,000 times before. Only this time it wasn't on a battlefield or an AVA waiting room, it was here, in front of his son, whose eyes scanned the auditorium from the third row of graduating cadets, his smile dropping when he saw his father being motioned out, lips parting as if to call out. But no sound came, not yet. Not until the moment the gym doors opened and the old man stepped into the aisle, and 6 men rose silently from their seats along the wall, dressed in civilian suits, but unmistakable in their bearing, backs straight, shoulders squared, hands clasped behind their backs with the stillness of men who had been trained to kill without blinking, and one by one they stepped forward, moving toward the guards like wolves closing in, not with aggression, but with a weight that silenced the room more completely than any microphone ever could, until the last one, a grizzled man with a silver beard and a chest full of medals barely hidden beneath his blazer, spoke just 3 words, "That man stays," and the younger guard blinked, confused, then laughed nervously and asked, "Who the hell are you?" To which the 6 men pulled back their jackets, revealing matching tattoos on their forearms, anchor and trident inked above the words SEAL Team 6, and the room shifted, like the earth itself had leaned in to listen, and even the principal stood frozen, hands gripping the podium, as whispers exploded across the bleachers. "SEALs. Real SEALs. That old man. Who is he?" And the eldest SEAL turned to the crowd and said, not with pride, but with reverence, "You don't know because he never told you. But that man saved every one of our lives, And suddenly, the faces around the auditorium weren't just curious, they were ashamed. Because the guards who had mocked him now stood pale, lips pressed shut, backing away as the SEALs gently ushered the old man forward. One of them taking his elbow with the same tenderness a soldier might show his wounded commander. And from the graduates section, a young cadet stood up, his uniform crisp, his jaw tight with rage, and o'er his son, trembling not from nerves, but from the weight of what he had just seen. And as their eyes locked across the gymnasium, time seemed to stall. All the years of silence and sacrifice between them crumbling in an instant. And the boy shouted, "That's my father," his voice echoing like a battle cry through the hall, igniting applause that started in the far corner and rolled through the gym like thunder. Parents rising, teachers clapping, the orchestra dropping their instruments to join in. And the old man's knees nearly buckled, not from pain, but from something even harder to withstand recognition, because, for 40 years, he had worn invisibility like armor, never asking for thanks, never speaking of the missions that left half his team dead, never mentioning the children he helped evacuate under sniper fire, or the villages he shielded from chemical attack, never telling his own son that the nightmares weren't just dreams, but memories. And now here he stood, not as a forgotten relic in a borrowed seat, but as a giant, surrounded by the few men who knew the truth. And as he reached row 8C, the SEALs stood guard behind him, arms crossed in silent formation. And the guards who had asked him to leave had already disappeared into the crowd, their radios silent, their authorities stripped not by force but by honor. And when the principal cleared his throat and began to speak again, he did so with trembling hands, inviting the graduating class to stand and honor not just their futures, but the sacrifices that paved the way for them. And the first diploma handed out that day was not to a student, but to the old manor-folded American flag handed with both hands by the school's ROTC captain, who saluted him so sharply that even the teachers flinched. And as the ceremony continued, there wasn't a single eye that didn't turn back to glance at the man in seat 8C, the one who had come alone and left with an entire gym full of people standing for him. Because the silence of those 6 SEALs had spoken louder than any words ever could. And in that moment, under the banner of stars and stripes, between rows of plastic chairs and tear-stained programs, a forgotten warrior was remembered not with medals or speeches, but with silence, respect, and the pride of a son who finally knew who his father truly was.